Welcome, everyone. We'll call tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting of August 22nd, 2022 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Skelton Marvin, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, this is a moment for the public to come speak to council on any topic that they choose. If there's anyone from the public who'd like to come and speak to us, you can come speak now. Seeing no one now wants to come forward, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Call tonight's regular council meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of August 22nd, 2022 be adopted with the addition of item 4N, appointment of a second deputy election officer. Moved by Councillor Skelton Morvin, second by Councillor Adey. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. First, item 3A, recommendation of the minutes of the special council meeting of July 25th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillors Randhawa, second by Councillor Adey. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of July 25th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Skelton Morvin. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3C, recommendation of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of June 27, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, second by Councillor Adey. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3D, recommendation of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of July 25th, 2022 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, first tonight we have our Civic Recognition Awards presentation. This is usually done on Canada Day, but this year Canada Day was done a bit differently and was done in the evening instead of a daytime event. So we've invited some of our recipients to come here this evening. I think only one has made it, so we'll try to get the other ones at another time. But what I'd like to do is call Mr. Rob Gruber from Good Times Games up. We're going to do a picture with yourself and council. And just before you come up here, we'll say thank you very much for all your service to the community. You've been nominated to get this award for everything you do for the town, everything you do for the children of this community, and how you build community with your business, and the international recognition that you've received through your business. So you're doing great work, and you deserve to be recognized, and that's why you're here this evening. So why don't you come up, and we'll do a picture with all of council. We'll come up here together, right here.
We need that sometimes. Yes.
This looks like a firing squad. So
I'm here for it.
in the media, we never do this.
Should we-
So this is where I get
Should we
bossy.
hold him up like and have
Can
him?
you?
No.
Oh, God.
He's just solid muscle, this guy. He's always probably a
I have
10.
a couple people maybe sitting in front.
Sure. Yeah. I could jump on.
It's sort of a semi-firing squad.
I'm peeping over.
Hold on, let's get rid of these chairs. How about that?
Yeah, that
Say.
sit in the chair.
Sit in the chairs?
No.
Okay. Too corporate. Okay. Fair enough. Just drop a knee. Okay.
Well,
Okay, Reed,
Yeah.
can you come over?
Sure.
And Mayor, could you come over?
They just came out
Rob,
with
can you?
us.
I'm kidding, yeah. You gotta like touch shoulders, I'm sorry.
Touch shoulders.
I can't have gaps because, alright, okay, awesome. Now you can't see us. Reminder, could you come
Okay, you
forward
can
to
wait
the
till
front?
she's done and then.
Yeah, can you come forward to the front, please? Yeah, are you able to do, yeah, and come in closer, perfect. Okay, awesome. And I'm shooting into the window, right, so. Sorry, I'm like, didn't expect to come and take over a council meeting tonight.
That's okay. It's a one-time deal.
Yeah.
You don't know, I might run for mayor.
Oh.
You should. You like abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ready? 1, 2, 3, big smiles. Yay, this is fun. Yay! Awesome. Thank you. Make me do it again. For the civic record.
Haven't had so many men listening to you for so long.
1, 2, 3. Sorry, guys. Should I get you to
Okay,
it?
I'm back.
1, 2, 3. There you go. Okay, done.
That's gonna be the headline
All
for
right.
tomorrow's paper.
Congratulations.
Barry's quote.
Really
What was that?
Oh, you missed Barry's quote.
I did miss Barry's quote.
Print the one of Lee. with
Yeah,
the
sorry.
photo on it. Yeah.
The council firing squad. There you go. I like that one.
Something for you to hang on the wall at the store.
Yeah, sure. We might have to wear this.
Okay, so free service
Yeah.
anytime games.
That's like your new medallion for your
Yeah. Badge
badge of honor.
war badge of some kind.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, Rob, I was just gonna say we have a very long and boring meeting ahead of us, so you do not have to stay for the whole thing.
Fantastic.
I'm giving you permission to leave because I noticed people don't like to leave. They think it's rude, but
Thank you guys.
you got things to do.
Thanks, Rob.
Take care. Okay, that was fun. We already announced the other award recipients, but Ella Furland and Teresa Macris were the other award recipients who couldn't make it this evening, so we'll find another time to recognize them formally. Okay, next up, we have a report from our fire chief regarding the July 2022 monthly fire rescue report. Recommendation that council receive and file the report as provided. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Ady. Any questions? Our fire chief's in the audience if you want to ask questions. Okay, seeing none. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, report from our Director of Operations and Intergovernmental Relations regarding major projects monthly update.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as council is aware, I provide a monthly update on our major projects, and in this update, I'll be providing something on McBride Street as well. So right now, the 3rd Avenue extension geotechnical investigation is complete. However, the road is on hold until development is confirmed. It's at 15%. As you know, East Street, the new landfill cell, and the recycling program are all at 100% complete. RCMP detachment, 20% complete. The community has probably seen the demolition occur there, and we're very happy with that progress. The SCADA system update is still at 10%. RFP is in the process of award right now. The sewer treatment program, we are at 50% design drawings, so we're about 10% complete there. The submarine line and the overland portion of the water treatment phases of that project is awarded. So the submarine line design is awarded and the overland portion is awarded. Water treatment, we're still working on the RFP to release. The waterfront project, approximately 15% complete. Council has awarded the design build to a contractor, IDL Projects. Woodworth Dam is now 100% complete. The structure is complete. The decommission of the old dam is in progress. The reservoir is in the process of filling up. We are hoping for a schedule of September 27th to be able to flip the switch to get onto the new water. However, that's obviously up to our weather to see if we can get the reservoir bounced back by then. But we are aiming for a schedule of September 27th. McBride Street project is about 80% complete. All the underground utilities will be complete by the end of the week. Next is what they call appurtenances, so it's the sidewalks, curbs, that stuff, and getting prepped for paving. Paving has to be done in 2 lifts. And we need to do all new traffic loops associated with it. So we have a little bit of contractor delay that we have to deal with there, but we're hoping to have that back open between 2.5 and 3 weeks. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have another report from our Director of Operations and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation here is that Council receive the staff report on the administrative directive and resolve to abide by the orders as presented in the council package. So as council is aware, we have a long history of non-compliance in the area of liquid waste. However, staff have been working in concert with the federal and provincial government over the past decade to really get a plan together for us to move forward with sewer treatment. We have been working obviously on our wetland treatment system, which is an innovative and green solution. Climate change adaptation is a big thing in sustainability, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right type of processing to move us forward into the 21st century. So we're very pleased with that, and so is the province and federal government. However, we do have a directive, and this directive is a legal order, and that council has to be aware that they need to adopt it by resolution. Upon resolution, staff will facilitate the conditions that are outlined in that order, as you can see it in the package. And if we do not comply with that order, there could be fines levied against the city over the years between now and 2030. We had a draft administrative directive that we were given several months ago. Staff reviewed that, and there was some particular issues around the measures to be taken. So we went and we did what was called an oral representation in front of Environment Canada and Climate Change, and we're able to work with them on particular issues so that we've got our concerns met as well as their concerns. So at the end of the day, we believe that the administrative directive, though very prescriptive and rigid, is attainable, and we will be looking for treatment by 2030 as per the legislative directive, but what they are giving us is a path so that we can explore our innovative solution and get our ducks in a row to be able to get there by 2030 with our new system. So we're very pleased with that. So we do not know the budget implications at this time. We do have feasibility studies of what the cost could be, but knowing where the costs are going right now, we could see escalation in that, but we do know that there would be a significant savings against classic treatment of sewer treatment, large concrete style sewage treatment facilities when we do this wetland system. So in the end, we're looking for a resolution to support the staff report and support the administrative directive that we will abide by that moving forward. Thank you.
Recommendation that council receive the stat report and administrative directive and resolve to abide by the required orders. Moved by Councillor Reinhalla, second by Councillor Adey. Discussion?
I'm intrigued, I suppose, by the requirement that it be done by resolution, but you've got to do it anyway, which seems to me where we're at. But beyond that, I do have just a question about the process. I see under plans and characterization that there's a deadline August 30th, which is very soon, for a report. And then the next step is to do the characterization of the 6 outfalls. What does that mean? What is a characterization?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So the reports that are due by August 30th are almost complete. I'm personally writing them myself and turning them over. There are action items that need to be done by the end of August, and I will be putting those forward. The characterization is what we did with Outfall I a couple years ago, which is actually cameraing them and looking for issues with them, whether it be disjointed sections or sections that are broken or collapsed, and then we characterize those and then have to go and fix them or augment or look at twinning or other things. So we will be doing that over the years. It is a necessary thing to do, one, for asset management, and two, as part of this program.
You want to follow up?
Can I assume that's one of the reasons there's no awareness of budget impacts, because you don't know what you're going to find?
That is correct.
Okay, just a couple of clarifications, Richard. It says define possible measures as to not possible. Who determines possible?
We do have biannual meetings with the compliance officers, and I'm in constant contact. So what we do is we will be putting together an active budget for works for the next year, and then we would make sure that they're aware of what we've got approved, what we can do, and if we can talk with them about pushing something a year forward or not if we can't afford to do it. So this is prescriptive, but it can be adjusted over time. So they ultimately approve the works. They have set this out, but we do have an opportunity to go to them and say that we physically can't get this work done, and then they can either compel us to do it, or they could relax some of it and push it to the next year.
And,
Councilor, use your microphone.
the other part is treatment and collection separation where required. And if we go to this wetland project that we've discussed in the past, we won't have to start separating all our, one of the biggest costs of this liquid treatment is digging up every road and separating the lines and everything. And if we go to the other treatment that we're talking about, that means we won't have to do that, and they'll buy into that type of plan.
Yes, that's correct. So they are aware of our pilot program. They're aware they are a outside stakeholder on that process, and they're very eager to see our results. And if we are successful, which I think we will be in our results, then we will not have to do the separation as required if we went to the classic style of treatment. So this is able to be massaged a little bit over the years. When we've met some of the yearly objectives, we can take a look back, and if we have to adjust, we can, but it's really up to them to do that.
And also, just for my curiosity, the biggest industrial use of our system in this town is the port. Are they helping us in any way with this?
No, this right now is just a City of Prince Rupert initiative.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Councilor Morrow on the line. Do you have any comments?
I don't, no.
Okay, resolution on the floor. All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have a report from planning regarding the July 2022 development activity report. Is there going to be a report on this, or just for our information? Okay. Okay, moving on to F, DVP 2110 for 1551 K Smith Boulevard. Recommendation that council proceed with the approval of DVP 2110. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know if there was any correspondence from any negative impacts on this one, just because there was quite a few different variances for this one.
I can confirm that I received nothing as of 4 p.m. today.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we actually? I thought I was, yeah. Go ahead.
I did notice that in doing your background and analysis, there's a section there regarding a policy being drafted or has been drafted by the building department, which I assume is intended to address the concern that arose out of last month's meeting with regard to how some of this development got missed. Is that a fair assumption? I see there's 4 policy items there.
Through the mayor? Yes, this policy is being drafted exactly because of the problem that this application presented. Now, I would note that the staff did not miss anything. The applicant was repeatedly advised about the zoning requirements and setback and height requirements, and it went ahead anyways. So what this policy does is it gives the building inspector direction at the time of footings to call for a surveyor certificate to ensure that there's no setback violations, and at the time the roof is done to make sure that there's no height. And in both cases, if there is a violation of the zoning bylaw, there's a stop work order, and nothing proceeds until either the setback or the height violations are corrected or a variance application is received and approved. So this policy will prevent a similar situation where a house is completed contrary to the bylaws and notwithstanding staff advice along the way.
Because we've had these issues in the past where people do something, then ask for permission later, and we need to put an end to that for sure. Go ahead.
Last meeting on a lot of the DVPs, I drove around and looked at them, and construction was already started before we'd even had the variation before us. And like they were small, a deck within 1.5 feet of the property line, things like this that no one really objected to. But I was just amazed at just about every one of them. It was like, well, build it and we'll just ask for forgiveness. You know, it seems to have been the norm, and it's just ridiculous. You know, like and this is just way beyond ridiculous. You know, like the guy just continued doing when it was pointed out to him, and you know, unfortunately, you know, pretty well have to pass it. Unfortunately, I'd like to see a chainsaw taken to it in some situations, because it was just blatant disregard for the rules.
Other comments? Go ahead.
We should apologize for any inferences towards staff. But I wonder whether there are examples in other communities of ways to respond to these situations that might move towards something of a compensation. Is there a way to, I don't think we can do it in this case because there's nothing in place for policy, but is there a way to establish an actual consequence for those people who do these kinds of things without the support of the city?
To some degree, that exists for council now. Council does not have to approve the variance application. The occupancy permit can be withheld, and a Section 57 notice can be registered on title, which advises any future owners that the structure is not in compliance with the bylaws, and that can create some issues with financing. So there are measures. Council can also, you know, push to have it rectified, which means structural alterations. Now, that's not the direction that council has indicated it wants to go, but those are options for the council. I think that the policy that we have will help us help us avoid this kind of more extreme situation in the future. So,
who wants any recommendations for approval or amendments, or what's the council's feeling?
Well, I mean, obviously we don't want to see this happening all the time, but you know, and not in any defense of the builder, but you know, I mean, we live in a town where there's rocks, and you know, these plans are generic plans that are purchased, and you know, they work on a flat lot, and when all of a sudden you start building them on a lot that has, you know, a hill, you're on the side of a hill and you're side of the bank, there's, you know, there's variations. But like I said, not in any defense of what's happened here. You know, I feel that you know, there could have been changes that he could have done ahead of time to make it better. But at the end of the day, it's new housing. If it's not impacting anyone, and no one has made any complaints, then I would move to pass it as it stands.
Okay, moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have DVP 2218 for 1444 2nd Avenue West. I believe we have received two comments about this property as well.
Yes, we have placed on your desks, and Councillor Moreau, I've emailed it to you. We received 2 comments in the negative, one from Mr. Spracklin and the other from Mr. Knopf.
Discussion?
I wonder whether there is an opportunity to work towards some kind of a mediation between those who are concerned about this and the objectives of the person that's doing the development. I don't know whether we have any role in brokering something like that, but I'm a little concerned with supporting something that is clearly opposed by people in the surrounding properties.
Other comments?
I think we need some more time on this one. Being that there's objections and maybe a little bit more information is needed.
Okay. Councillor Kenny?
Tabled it.
Yeah, you want a motion to table? Okay, seconder. Okay, moved by Councillor Niche. We'll table it to the next council meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. We'll review this information and we'll deliberate at the next council meeting on this DBP. Okay, item H, report from planning regarding temporary use permit application number 2203 for 191 Metlakatla Road. Welcome.
Thanks. So an application was received for a temporary use permit for the property located at 191 Metlakatla Road. The application involves a request to have a shipwrecking yard and to store, handle, and sell scrap material on the subject property for up to 1 year. So the request is made to accommodate a potential contract award by the Canadian Coast Guard to dispose of, through shipbreaking, the FV Fairwind. So after the removal of all hazardous material from the vessel at its current location at Port Edward, the vessel would be towed to and winched onto the subject property. The vessel would then be cut up and the resulting scrap material would be barged to Vancouver for further processing. Contingent on the contract award, it's anticipated that the work would begin in late September and last for approximately 3 weeks. No buildings or structures would be used. There are no known negative impacts of the proposed request on the surrounding neighborhood, and the public will have the opportunity to provide input during the public consultation period. To ensure compliance, the draft temporary use permit includes a condition that the city receives and retains a $5,000 cash bond until the temporary use is discontinued, and the recommendation is that council proceeds with the statutory notification process.
Okay, moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Randhawa. Discussion?
Who's going to make sure all the hazardous materials are removed at the site in Port Ed? Transport Canada, Coast Guard, who?
I'm not sure of that.
You know, because if the hazardous materials are removed of this totally before it gets towed over there, you're going to have more than a $5,000 bond problem with contamination. You know, especially if it's that close to the water. I'm assuming they've got all their other permits in place with DFO and everyone else to do this?
I believe so.
You believe so? Okay. Because usually shipwrecking is a very controversial thing in BC. You know, it goes on and on and on, the problems after that's been done. So I just caution that we make sure that those aspects of it are taken care of before, you know, we can, even if we give them a temporary use permit, they've still got to get permission from DFO and MOE, I believe. I don't know if Richard can maybe answer that.
Yeah, they would definitely need working by the water and DFO. Absolutely.
So I would think that we should make sure that those other permits are in place.
Mr. Buchan, would you be willing to check in on that?
Yes, I was thinking something along those lines, that we will confirm.
I don't think we need to stop this or anything, but I think we should check just to make sure.
Subject to there's no importation of any hazardous materials into the city of Prince Rupert as a function of this.
There you go. Friendly amendment. Okay. Okay. So we'll add that to the resolution. Sound good? Yep. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Next, we report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the June 2022 Financial Variance Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The operating and utility revenues and expenses halfway through the year are currently on target and in line with expectations. As noted before, it is expected that inflation may impact future performance to the budget. Capital and special projects are underway and costs are rolling in. There are no significant variances to report at this time, and that concludes my report.
Great. Recommendation that council receive and file this report as provided. Moved by Councillor 80, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. Any discussion? All's in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Just one question, McBride Avenue, all the work there obviously wasn't budgeted for. How's that impacting our budget this year?
Council approved a budget amendment to include it.
That was two or three meetings ago we did that. Any other discussion? Okay, all's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding amended supplementary letters patent tax share information.
Thank you. The amended supplementary letters patent prescribed changes to the Prince Rupert and Port Edward Lee Island tax share agreement. Inclusive in the amendment was a requirement to provide information to council and to forward the info to the council of the District of Port Edward and the Inspector of Municipalities of the Province of BC for their review. This report includes the information required. Council is asked to receive the report and direct staff to provide the information accordingly.
Anyone want to move?
I'll
to
move that,
recommend-
Mr. Mayor. I just have a question though. After we put the motion on the table.
Moved by Councillor Morrow, second by Councillor Niche. Go ahead.
Thanks very much for your report. I'll start by saying I'm proud of the work we've done as a team to come to an agreement here with the District of Port Ed, and I think it sets us all up really well for success and working together moving forward. My question relates to Appendix A of your report, where you've basically listed the assessment of properties that are impacted by the tax sharing agreement. And it shows a pretty dramatic decrease in the Port Authority's payment in lieu of taxes from 2.6 million to just over 500,000. Now, for their payment to be reduced by over 2 million in just a single year, obviously means that their property assessments must have collapsed. So I'm wondering, are you in a position tonight to tell us what these impacted properties were assessed at last year versus this year for such a dramatic decrease?
Yes, there was a significant reduction. There was a board recommendation from BC Assessment for reduction. We are appealing the values in 2022, but to answer your question, between 2021 and 2022, the value dropped by about 82%. And that is reflected, obviously, in the PILT amounts that are reported on this information to council.
So just one follow-up, a drop in the assessed value of 82%, what does that equate to in real dollars?
It was basically from about 140 million down to about 27 million, if I remember off the top of my head.
Would it be possible to get the exact numbers provided for the next council meeting?
Yes, I
or even just a supplementary report is fine too.
Yes, if council wishes that, we can certainly prepare that.
Just a follow-up question on that. So home prices went up on average, what, 30% in Prince Rupert this year?
Yes, that's correct.
And the port's properties were down 82% compared to all the house prices that went up.
Yes, that is correct.
And then resulting in a $2 million less payment they have to make, basically.
Yeah, presently.
Just making sure we got the facts straight. Thank you. Yeah, it would be interesting to see that information for the next council meeting for sure. Any other questions? Okay, all's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we have a report from our fire chief regarding the bylaw update fire safety inspections.
Thank you very much. I'll just give you a brief history on it. When COVID happened, then fire inspections in the community stopped because we had to respect the fact that we couldn't get into a lot of properties around town. And so we used that time to conduct an internal review to see what was working well with our inspection process and what was working poorly. And so we've revamped our inspection process and are rolling it out now. But one of the things that, fire protection and inspection is basically it's left up to the municipalities to look after themselves. The one thing that is legislated by the province is to provide is to have a provision for inspections, and so that's one thing that we determined was missing in our bylaw, is just to have something formalized to outline when we're going to do inspections and at what frequency. And so that's what's before you right now, is just to kind of hit that checkbox. It's more of I think a checkbox than anything else, just to move our inspection process forward. It provides some structure for our inspectors, and it's predictable, and it'll, I think, give us just a bit more, a better foot forward. That's about it.
Go ahead.
Just a question now. When you've got the occupancy types on your report here, what if the buildings are empty and they're not currently occupied, or we don't know of an occupation because of whether it be, a grow operation that we're not allowed to know about or whatever? What is the rules going to be for that, or like what are you thinking for empty buildings, basically?
To the mayor, great question. So any building or property that is not occupied, it doesn't meet criteria for our inspection. So it's only once they become in service or use that activates our inspection frequencies and our program. So buildings that are vacant for a long time, we don't go in them. The same thing with residential. This is only for certain classifications of businesses and buildings. We don't do residential at all, unless we're invited into someone's property to do a courtesy inspection at their place.
So, do you think that it would be wise to have an addition to this bylaw to add, empty buildings to it too? Because we do have, a fair bit of empty buildings around here that, whether it be a roof leaking and there's an electrical problem, or, the roof's leaking on electricity, it's going to cause a fire or something like that. Like, would it not be something that would be a good benefit to add to our policy or bylaw to have, an owner required to open an empty building, whether it be once every 2 years or once a year or something, to just to make it safe? Because just because a building's occupied or unoccupied doesn't make it any more safe or less safe. So I think that if we're going to do these changes in this policy, to me it makes sense to have it for all buildings, whether they're empty or not. Just a thought.
Are we even allowed to do something like that? That's a question I would have.
I think once they're vacant, that I think by law we can't, and that's why it's not in place. What is in place is for places that are vacant, the responsibility does fall onto the property owner or the representative for anything that does happen with that. And so if there's a fire in a vacant building, they bear that responsibility. Our inspection process does have an enforcement angle to it, but ultimately responsibility is on the property owner to ensure that they're maintaining their buildings regardless of inspections.
Councillor Cunningham, then Councillor 80.
With medicinal marijuana grow-ups, are they exempt from fire inspection? Because when I first read the actual application and everything, it says that they have to apply or be compliant with fire inspection and other things.
We're certainly doing some investigating in that, but as it stands right now, there are some pretty obvious loopholes in that whole process to get some permitting. They're not required to be inspected by us once they are licensed, and that's part of a privacy issue for the business owner or the occupant, and it ties into security. So if all of a sudden everybody else in the neighborhood knows that this house is filled with a bunch of pot plants, then some people may go in there and start looking for free pot.
Yeah, Mr. Buchan, I think you can clarify that point, eh?
Mr. Mayor, this is a matter that council has actually asked us to do some research and develop policy on, to allow the city to find a way to, know where there are medically oriented grow operations for cannabis, and to develop a process for inspecting them. That's the one thing we can do. We can't say yes or no to them, but we can inspect. So that will be our way into doing what we can with that use, along with expressing our concerns to Health Canada as they reconsider their regulations.
Yeah, I was going to say that's definitely a Health Canada issue there. For the follow-up? Councillor Ady, then Councillor Renha.
Yeah, as somebody who's lived here a long time, and I remember watching the Savoy Hotel burn down decades ago, you could write an interesting history of this community by the buildings we've lost. So anything that we put in place that can be small steps towards prevention, which I think this is what this is all about, I'm fully in support of. I just had a question of curiosity more than anything else. On the column for frequency, are those time periods based on a kind of an industry standard, or are they homegrown? And what would be the criteria for, say, one building just on an initial inspection, another one 2 years, another one 1 year? How did we determine that?
Through the mayor, that was done in mostly in two steps. One was cooperative with the surrounding departments that we have here in Terrace and Kitimat to do some comparatives. We also consulted the Office of the Fire Commissioner on this one to say what is the trend, what's trending in the province right now. A lot of small to mid-sized communities struggle with an inspection program because of staffing and expenses of doing this. We're kind of right in the bubble between being so small that we don't really have much of an inspection but not too big to have our own dedicated sort of inspection prevention program within the department. So like, Port Ed wouldn't have this, they wouldn't be able to offer what we offer, but we don't offer what Prince George has in place right now. So it was definitely worked for those recommendations, and that frequency was designed through consultation and with the communities and of similar size and the Fire Commissioner's office. And although it is recommended on certain frequencies, there is flexibility on that, so that we're not held liable for those numbers exactly. So that there is discretion depending on the situation to extend it further.
So then I assume then if a building was inspected on its at a scheduled time, but over the next 6 months or so became a clear and obvious threat for something bad to happen, you could then initiate another inspection within that time frame.
Absolutely. So this frequency is for compliant inspections. So if you go into a business and they have everything's fine, everything is up to code. Again, it's up to the owner or the business representative to make sure that everything is current and compliant. But if we go into a apartment building as an example, and we find deficiencies, then that will automatically trigger a reinspection, likely within 21 days, and that begins a separate process from this inspection frequency. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How other communities deal with the vacant buildings? They can go there, check fire or no? I know some cities every year they send you declaration form, like you have to tell them owner living there, rental living there. If it's vacant, they charge you some kind of money or something like that. So you think that can be done here? Or?
I'm not. I'm not sure. I think that that sounds great. I'm not sure if that would be part of my scope, or if that would fall through.
That would probably be their administrative to look at it.
Yeah.
We'll look at that.
Yeah. Councilor Cunningham?
Do you have the capability to do courtesy inspections for residential dwellings?
Yes, we do, but there's no enforcement with that. It's simply if a resident has concerns on any fire safety, then we would go in and provide recommendations or just guidance. And it could be something as simple as cleaning out your dryer filter to cleaning the grease trap under your stove.
Any further questions? I now can't remember if we moved the motion or not yet. Okay. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Scott Morvan. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir.
Next, we have a report from our corporate administrator regarding the bylaw notification system resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following the report that was done at the July 25th meeting, the process is underway with the government. They are they have requested an additional resolution just to ensure that we have all the boxes checked. So what we're looking for this evening is that Council authorize administration to request the Court Services Branch, Ministry of Attorney General, to add the City of Prince Rupert to the bylaw notice enforcement regulation, and that Council directs administration to bring forward a bylaw notice enforcement bylaw pursuant to the Local Government Act for consideration.
Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion? Great idea. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Another report from our corporate administrator regarding Eco Trust Canada request for support. Recommendation that Council support the application to NDIT Community Spaces Fund for Eco Trust Canada for a grant of $30,000 to conduct pop-up community market events. Moved by Councillor Ranhawa, second by Councillor 80. Discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Another report from corporate administrator regarding amendment to Eco Trust Canada support from 2021. Recommendation that Council amend their confirmation of support for Eco Trust Canada's community efficiency financing feasibility study to include staff time up to $7,500. Moved by Councillor Scott Mullen, second by Councillor Cunningham. Discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. And our late agenda item, the recommendation is that Antonio Vera, Manager of Human Resources, be appointed as the Deputy Elections Officer for the 2022 General Municipal Election, and that Tanya Ostrom, Manager of Operations, be appointed as a Deputy Elections Officer for the period of August 29th through September 9th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Niche. This is to help with some staffing and then people being away and things like that. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next, on to bylaws. Bylaw 5A. Recommendation that Council give fourth and final reading to the zoning bylaw amendment number 3492 2022. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Skelton Morvan. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item B, public notice bylaw number 3500 2022. Recommendation that Council give fourth and final reading to the public notice bylaw number 3500 2022. Moved by Councillor 80, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item C, Prince Rupert Boulevard road dedication bylaw. Recommendation that Council give third reading to the Prince Rupert Boulevard road dedication bylaw number 3499 2022. Moved by Councillor Scott Morvan, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item D, report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding a police detachment temporary borrowing bylaw number 3502/2022. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So under Community Charter 181, Council is authorized to borrow temporarily up to the amount adopted in a loan authorization bylaw. Construction will occur prior to debenture financing is obtained. Therefore, a temporary borrowing bylaw has been prepared for the police detachment project that will enable the city to obtain the funds to discharge project obligations. Payments during this time will consist of interest only on amounts drawn down. Towards the end of the project and the final borrowing amount is known, the city can trigger the long-term debt by converting the temporary borrowing into debenture financing with the Municipal Financing Authority. Council's asked to introduce and give 3 readings to the bylaw, thereby enabling the city to move towards obtaining financing for construction.
Anyone want to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Renhala, second by Councillor Ady. Any further discussion? All's in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, any reports, questions, and inquiries from members of council? Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, it's been brought to my attention and other people that the Cannabis Act was supposed to be reviewed 3 years after the emergency came in 2018, which would have put it right in the middle of the pandemic. It wasn't done, but it's coming up for review very shortly. And I would like to see the city send a letter to Health Canada as well as to our MP expressing our concerns about cannabis, medicinal marijuana grow-ups in the downtown or business and residential areas, and also the habit of combining licenses until you get into a super grow or commercial situation, especially in a small city like Prince Rupert where it has an impact on our business and residential areas. So I just think it's something that we've discussed before, and I think these should be, because they're almost becoming commercial entities, they should be out in a commercial or industrial setting, not within the city limits itself. So I'd just like to get a direction that staff fire off that letter to Health Canada.
That actually has been done now, and we have already engaged with both those levels of government, right? With
there have been discussions, but I think that this letter would be a helpful step.
Extra step.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, it would be technically we don't do resolutions on the floor, but if all of council is in agreement
That's right.
to do it, then that's fine. So as long as there's no opposition, we can definitely send that letter. So you're moving a motion seconded by Councillor Niche. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion's carried.
And one other thing, it was brought to my attention by somebody, and I haven't been able to confirm it, but a person went up to the hospital that was expecting and told that if you go to the hospital between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., you may be transported to Terrace for delivery. And I phoned the hospital and asked for clarification on that around 4 days ago, and no one ever got back to me. And that, but I think it's something that we should. I'm definitely going to look into it and find out, because I think that's expecting some woman that's in labor to hop into a ambulance and be transported to Terrace in the middle of the night. It's just not a kosher thing. It's another example of our eroding services at our hospital, and you know, if that's the case, I think we've got to get on to Northern Health and rectify it immediately. And it also adds to the EMS. You know, you've got an ambulance running down to Terrace for out of service for 4 or 5 hours, and it puts more pressure on our fire department again. So it's sort of a trickle-down effect or domino effect where it's adding to another problem. So, but I think it's something we've got to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Other inquiries from council? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Grant Howe, second by Councillor Ady. All's in favor? Meeting is adjourned. We'll see you in September.